We're going to give a few moments as everyone kind of joins this webinar with the county registrar, and just get an update on all the ins and outs of voting this election cycle. And we're pleased to be joined by Courtney Bailey-Kanelos, our county registrar. And see, I got the name right. I hope I did, Courtney. So,
nice job.
So we're just going to give a few moments. We had over 200 people RSVP, and again, Democrats, Republicans, no party preference voters. And this is not a election or a political event. This is an educational event, just to make sure, in our democracy, your vote is your voice. And we want to make sure we can answer your questions, or Courtney can actually answer your questions about voting in this election. So let's give it a few more moments, and then we'll start in about a minute. Great. Well, there's still a few folks trickling in and joining us, but it looks like the attendees have slowly slowed down a little bit. So again, Courtney, thank you for taking time out of your day. And I know this is obviously a really busy election season for you. I've glanced at, around the country, the large number of people that are voting early and voting by mail. And you see it nationally, but we've also seen it, at least from what I can tell, here in Sacramento County as well. So again, I really do appreciate your taking your time out to educate Sacramento County citizens and voters, answer their questions. And again, your service to our community is greatly appreciated. So let me introduce Courtney Bailey-Kanelos, our county registrar. So Courtney, let me turn it over to you for a moment.
Great, thank you so much, Congressman, and appreciate the opportunity again to talk about what we do here in Sacramento County to secure the integrity of the election, especially during these challenging times. So any opportunity to talk about the election, we definitely try to take advantage of. So to start things off, I'm going to kind of give a short presentation to talk about our voting options this upcoming election, the security and safety of vote by mail, as well as the safety at our in-person vote center locations. So I'm going to go ahead and get right into that with my share screen. And it looks like there it is. Okay, so hopefully you all can see that. So we'll just get right into it here. So first thing is talking about voting options. And while we have had over 200 ballots returned to our office so far, that's about not even quite, let's see, we're at, it's not even quite 2/3 of our total registered voters. So we still have a lot of voters out there that might be waiting or want to vote in person. So we want to cover what those in-person voting options are for this election. So all registered voters are going to automatically receive their ballot in the mail. Those can be returned by mail, postage paid, at any designated ballot drop box location in California, or at any vote center or polling place in California. And it's great to be able to have that opportunity to drop off at any location in the state, and it will go to your correct county, especially with concerns over deployment for wildfires or other emergency services where folks might be out of their area during the election. You can actually drop it off at any county in California. Also with by mail, we know that there have been concerns regarding the Postal Service, but I can tell you that we've been working very closely with our representative in West Sacramento, which is our big postal hub, and we have been seeing those returns timely. In fact, we had a ballot just the other day that was dated and in 24 hours we got it back. So it was amazing. I think it was what, the 19th, I think it was. So it was great to see that returns even from Elk Grove, that we got the mail back so quickly. If you haven't received your ballot in the mail and you are a registered voter, please contact our office. Either something might be wrong with the registration, or if you've moved, or if you have a forwarding address on file. Election materials do not get forwarded, so please contact our office, or if you just never got it, and we can make sure to send out another ballot to you. If you didn't want to vote by mail, you don't have to. We still have in-person voting options for all of our voters in Sacramento County. So in Sacramento County, we're going to have 84 vote center locations. And vote centers are basically mega polling places. And instead of going to one location on one day, voters can go to any location in the county to get their correct ballot. So even if you're a resident of Folsom, but you're down in the Elk Grove area, you can definitely go to an Elk Grove vote center and still get your Folsom ballot. So having this, what we call real-time connection to the voter file, allows us at any vote center to get the voter's correct ballot and also verify in real time that a voter hasn't voted anywhere else in California. So it's great to have that capability so voters have the flexibility to go where they want to vote. So 18 locations are going to open on October 24th. That is this Saturday. And all of our 84 vote center locations are going to be open on Halloween, starting on Halloween through Election Day. Here in Sacramento County, hours vary by location. So it's important to look at our website or in your county voter information guide to check on those hours, because we do provide some flexible hours for voters. On Election Day, though, all locations will be open from 7 a.m. until 8 p.m. And as long as you're in line by 8 p.m. on Election Day, you will be able to vote and participate in the election. If you still need a ballot and you don't want to vote in person, there is also a new option that we call here accessible vote by mail. And this is a system that was designed for our military and overseas voters, as well as voters with disabilities, to go to a secured system, mark their ballot at home on their PC, and print it out and send it in. Because of COVID-19, the state legislature has allowed this system to be used for all voters. So this is an option as well, and there's more information if you go to our website on our homepage on how to access it. Any voter can access it, and even if you don't have your return envelope, you can pick up a replacement envelope at any vote center or any ballot interior ballot drop box location. For our drop boxes, all of our Sacramento Public Libraries, as well as all of our Raley's and Bel Air locations in Sacramento County are available drop boxes. And our website has even more than what was initially mailed to you all due to the volume of what we've seen returned so far. So our website has the most updated information on in-person locations and drop boxes. Now, October 19th was the deadline to register to vote to have a ballot mailed to you. But if you did not register by that deadline, you can still go to any vote center location in Sacramento County as long as you are a Sacramento County resident. So if you didn't register to vote before, or even if you just need to update your registration because maybe you moved, you can go to any vote center location, update your information, get the ballot type for where you live now, and be able to cast your vote. So requirements to register to vote is that you are a U.S. citizen, you're 18 years or older on or before Election Day. You can pre-register at 16 and 17, but to participate in the election, you do have to be 18 by November 3rd. A resident of Sacramento County and not in prison or on parole for a felony conviction. So as long as you meet those criteria, you're able to take advantage of the conditional voter registration process. And we call it conditional because it has to come back to our office and we have to verify you haven't voted anywhere else in California first before we count your ballot. So that's why we call it conditional. But as long as you complete the registration form, you sign the return envelope. You can't tell by that picture, but it's yellow. It looks like this. As long as you complete this, we can get you registered. And if there is information missing, we will reach out to you. So vote by mail security. So obviously there's been a lot of questions and concerns regarding the vote by mail process. So I just have a couple slides here to just give you an idea of what we do to ensure that this is a safe and secure process. So each return envelope has a unique identifying barcode, and this is how we know that only one ballot is going to count for that eligible voter. So we have the one ballot to one voter record, and that's how we make sure, and we compare it to our statewide database to make sure there are no other ballots coming back. Even if you get issued an additional ballot, a replacement ballot, when we issue that ballot, the old one becomes void, and then the new one will count, and any other ballots out there will not count. So that's how we make sure only one ballot counts for each voter record. And then those return ballots are run through the mail sorter, and this mail sorter weighs them to ensure that multiple ballot cards are not inside the envelope. So I have a little kind of video here of how our ballot sorter machine works. It obviously goes very quick. It takes a picture of the envelope for signature verification. It sorts it down to precinct level. And again, it also weighs it. So even if you got another ballot or you're trying to, put something in there, we'll be able to catch it, manually review it. And if there is more than one ballot inside, neither ballot will count. Then for the vote by mail security, continuing, we do a signature verification process. And we do this before we count the ballot, where we look at the image of the return envelope after it was run through the sorter, and we compare it to the voter registration file and any previous records that we have for you. And by doing this, we can see if your signature has changed over time. Now, we do a comparison, so it does not have to be an exact match. We look for identifying points, common characteristics, how you dot your I's, cross your T's, the size, the angle, pen pressure. We actually have our staff that is trained and goes through training to do signature verification processes. So we look at that. And if there is any question about your signature, we will reach out to you. So if you forgot to sign your return envelope or your signature doesn't match, we will reach out to you, and you have through the certification period following the election to get that information to us. But that is one more reason to vote early. So there's plenty of time to contact you if there is something wrong. Prior to counting, the voter is checked in that statewide voter database to make sure they haven't voted anywhere else in California. And then we also complete an audit process to ensure that all ballots are counted accurately and that we do a reconciling to ensure that, again, we have a ballot set for every registered voter. And I just have a little video here of our extraction process. So once we verify your ballot is good, it gets extracted through this machine. And as you can see, the envelope information is covered. The ballots are pulled out. It goes pretty quickly. Well, I guess my video is not that quick. I'll play it again. And so by doing this, this ensures that voters still maintain a private ballot. So at this point, there's no way to tie that ballot back to the voter. So there's no way to say that this particular ballot belonged to a particular voter after the verification and eligibility check has been completed. So if you don't want to vote by mail, or you can't, we still will have our in-person vote centers. And we are taking extra steps this election to make sure that it is a safe environment for our staff that's going to be working there, as well as our voters. So masks are going to be worn by all vote center staff, and then masks, gloves, and shields are available for voters who need them. And they will be offered to every voter outside of each vote center. A limited number of people are going to be allowed in the voting area at one time. So because we are going to be enforcing social distancing, it will lead to lines, especially on this huge election. We're anticipating a large turnout. And due to the social distancing requirements, it might take a little bit longer. So we are encouraging that if you do want to vote in person, please take advantage of those early voting days and weekends to be able to get out and vote in person. We're also going to be having sanitation stations at the entrance of all vote center locations and plenty of hand sanitizer throughout. We also have our staff trained on daily disinfectant procedures and also to disinfect all booths and touchscreen devices after every voter. We actually brought on people just to do those disinfectant procedures for this election. We are recommending that if you are going to vote in person, that you bring your county voter information guide or another piece of mail with you to help check in. We realize that by wearing masks, there can be a communication barrier. It might be hard to understand voters' names and addresses. So if you have that piece of mail with you, it will definitely help to expedite the check-in process and make sure we get you your ballot as quick as possible. So my contact information is here. If you have any questions that we don't talk about tonight or get to, please feel free to call. You can also email. Our website also has more information on voting in person, voting by mail, and also our COVID-19 election administration plan is published if you do want more details on what we are doing to protect our voters and our staff. And finally, if you haven't yet sign up for a new system called Ballot Tracks. It's hosted through the Secretary of State's website called Where's My Ballot? Takes you to a site called Ballot Tracks where you can sign up to receive notifications on the status of your ballot.
Courtney, that was great. I mean, who knew, all the complexity and everything that went into the vote and making sure votes were counted and they were accurate. I should have said at the top of the hour, but the folks on the webinar figured it out. But if you have a question that you want to ask, go ahead and put it in either the chat function or the Q&A function. We had a couple questions that were submitted ahead of time. And why don't we, if you're ready to go, Courtney, why don't we just jump into some of the questions that folks had submitted. And then I know I've already seen in the chat and the Q&A, we've got a couple questions in there and we'll try to get to those.
Great.
As well. So I've got a question from Mary. And Mary said, are mail-in ballots counted as soon as they're received?
Yes, so we don't want to say as soon as they're received because they do have to go through that eligibility check first. But definitely the earlier we get those ballots back, the earlier we can count them. So we actually have staff in our office right now that are processing them, doing the eligibility check, extracting them, looking them over for damages, and then tomorrow we're going to start on the tabulation. And the tabulation is on each individual machines that is connected only to our local server in our secured 24-hour surveillance room. So it is not connected to the internet where anyone could remotely hack into the system. So this is a very strict requirement on the voting systems in California, and each machine is going to be scanning all these ballots over the next couple of weeks, and it is only after 8 p.m. election night where we can bring all those results together, tally them, and then report them. But we can start counting them now. We just have to wait until 8 p.m. to report them.
Okay. We've got a question from Karen. My household voted through the mail. How can we feel secure that our vote will be counted?
You know, I think the best way to make sure that you feel that security is to check either through Ballot Tracks or even on our website. We have a voter lookup tool where you can verify that we've received and accepted your ballot. And if we've accepted your ballot, it means that it is ready for counting, no problems with your signature at all. Using the tracking system is the best way to kind of instill that confidence that we do have your ballot. And whether you return it through the mail or at a drop box, the voter lookup tool and the Ballot Track system will be able to track for either of those scenarios. Or if you drop it off at a vote center, you'll still receive those notifications.
A question from Tobias. Do we have enough poll workers in Sacramento?
Yes. You know, this was actually one of my biggest concerns as we moved into this election, was not being able to find locations or people. And for a while we were struggling to find locations, but once I guess I sounded desperate enough in some of my pleas, where the community really stepped up. All communities throughout the county providing locations and people. We have so many applications in, we don't even have enough space to staff them all. So we're very appreciative of everyone coming together to support this process.
Great. We've got a question from Ivan. How can you tell a fake ballot box from a real one? Also, what happens to your ballot if it is placed in the wrong box?
So for Sacramento County, and for actually all counties in California at least, their official ballot boxes are going to have either their county logo for us, we have that county, Sacramento County wave logo, or they're going to have their county seal. That's how you know it's an authorized county box with county personnel that's responsible for the security of it, the chain of custody of picking up those ballots. If you do want to, give your ballot to someone else to turn in for you, you absolutely can. That is an option. But you just want to maybe make sure that you trust the person or the group. You feel free to ask questions, and you can feel free to say no as well. In Sacramento County, we have not had any of those unauthorized drop boxes pop up. From my perspective, it's more of a concern of saying it's official or it's county oriented. We just want to make sure that voters, regardless of what of who hosts the box, that the voters know who's hosting the box, so they can make that decision themselves on if they trust to get that ballot back to us. Because if it's not a county box, we can't make that guarantee that those ballots are going to come back to us.
We've got a question from Marie. What do you do if you feel intimidated by a poll watcher?
That's a great question. So our poll workers have been trained to handle some of these difficult situations. And we also have a zero tolerance policy for any sort of intimidation or harassment. So in California, you don't have to be a certified observer, poll watcher, take classes. We believe that part of a healthy democracy is anyone being able to come in, watch our processes, either at our office or at one of our vote centers, and ask questions. However, once that starts to impede on the voting process, becomes disruptive, becomes aggressive, threatens our voters or our staff there, that is when we will say no, and we will ask them to leave. If anyone refuses to leave, that is when we will call local law enforcement. And the law enforcement agencies throughout the county, the cities, and the sheriff have been notified of all locations. They will not be proactively deployed there, but they know where they are. And in case something does come up, we have direct contacts with them to call out if something happens. But we also do train our poll workers on how to handle and de-escalate certain situations.
Great. We've got a question from Antoinetta. Is it better to mail our ballots or drop them off to ensure they are counted?
Oh, that's a tough one. Again, I'm pretty impressed with the mail returns that we've seen so far, and we haven't had a lot of issues. I would say my recommendation would be that dropping it off at a drop box is probably the most secure method. Well, actually, I'd say dropping it off at our office is the most secure method, then at any drop box or vote center, and then through the mail. But again, it's very few and far between where we hear, oh, it never got back to us. The post office, they understand the importance of this, and they look for that pink envelope that we have to make sure that it gets to us timely. So we don't have any major concerns. The mail's been working great for us here so far, but I would recommend drop boxes as the first option.
Courtney, I'm going to ask a question. What happens if I put my ballot in the mail like the Sunday before Election Day, so it's 2 days before Election Day, and it doesn't actually come to, you guys don't get it until a week later?
Good question. I can't believe I didn't cover that in my presentation. So yeah, so in California, and it does vary from state to state, but in California, as long as your ballot is postmarked on or before election day and received within our office by, in this case, November 20th, we're able to count your ballot and add it to the final results. And as we know, even with Congressional District 7, we also have city council races that it really does come down to those ballots that come in through the mail, or that get dropped off on election day before we know who the winner is. So even if we get it and process it and count it after election day, which for Sacramento County, more than half our ballots are always counted after election day. So it's important to know election night is just a glimpse of what's to come. We still have a lot of processing to do, a lot of verification to do. And so it does take a little bit longer, but it's because we have all these security measures in place. So as long as your ballot is postmarked on or before election day or dropped off before 8 p.m. On election day, or you're in line by 8 p.m., your ballot will be added to our final results.
Great. You know, we've got a couple questions that have come in through the chat. So you've covered some of this, but since it did come in, maybe covering it one more time. There was a question from Brian who asked, how do you verify it's valid when it comes in by mail?
So we do the signature verification to ensure that it belongs to that voter. So we have a statewide voter database that has personal information for every voter. And on the barcode that's on the return envelope is how we connect it to that voter record. So once that comes back, we will then review it to make sure they haven't voted anywhere else and that the signature belongs to the voter. So again, it doesn't have to be an exact match, but it has to have similarities. And if there is something wrong, or if we see a tampered ballot or a ballot that appears to be opened or not, or opened and resealed, we would reach out to you to say, hey, what's going on here? So it's the signature verification is really the big check to ensure that this ballot belongs to this voter.
Great. And there's a question that just came in. I know you covered some of this earlier, but it's a question from Christian. Is there an official voter drop box located at Sacramento County libraries?
Yes. So the great thing, and I'm just so grateful for the partnership of Sacramento Public Libraries, all Sacramento County public library locations are valid Dropbox locations. And they all have our boxes there. They might vary in size. On our website is a picture of our Sacramento County boxes that we use. So you can take a peek at that to make sure that you can kind of get an idea of what those boxes look like. But all Sacramento Public Library locations have those boxes.
Great. And there was a pre-submitted question from Karen. Karen wanted to know, how do I make sure my signature matches the one on the ballot? I've changed my style.
Sure. And when I remember looking at my old signature on my old driver's license, and I'm like, whoo, that really changed over the years. So, we do say that however whatever your driver's license signature looks like, especially with online registration, which actually pulls from your DMV signature, that's most likely the signature we have on file for your voter registration. If it's drastically changed, again, it is too late to re-register for this election, but you can do the conditional voter registration process, or you can reach out to us to update your signature only so we can make sure that we count your ballot. But we will ask for some verifying information to ensure that it's you. But we do understand signatures change over time. And also we have past vote by mail ballots, past records that we can kind of look back to do that comparison with.
Great. We've had some questions come in through the Q&A function. So we have a question from Clifton. What measures are taking to ensure that only legally cast votes by U.S. citizens and non-felons are counted?
So when you register to vote and when you sign the return ballot, or when you sign the roster to vote in person, you are declaring under penalty of perjury that you meet all eligibility requirements to be a registered voter. In addition, when you register and vote, you provide either your driver's license or your last 4 digits of your social security number. This information gets validated through the statewide voter database. So in Sacramento County, of our 870,000 registered voters, only about 2,000 did not provide that identification, and they do have to provide it the first time they vote. So if they don't, then we receive direction from Secretary of State that those ballots are not to be counted. So we use that verification with the driver's license and the social security numbers to ensure that they are here as legal citizens to be able to cast their ballot.
Great. And there's a question from Katie. She says, my husband is a registered voter who traditionally receives an absentee ballot. He is disabled and is no longer able to sign his name. During the last voting cycle, he had his mark verified by a poll worker. This time he would prefer to have his mark verified by the registrar's office rather than have to wait in line at a polling place. Is it possible to walk into the registrar's office?
Yes, absolutely. And we are open now Monday through Friday, and we would be more than happy to have him come in. If he does want to vote by mail, he can. There's still a, let's see, I don't know how well this will come out. There's a little area on the envelope to say that you're a witness to the mark if he does do a mark. So if you want to, or if he wants to vote by mail, you can still do that if you fill out that portion of the envelope. But definitely, please feel free to come into our office. And right now, the lines aren't, actually, we haven't had any lines except for the first week. Now it's cooled down a little, so you can definitely come in. It's not too bad.
Great. We have a question from Emma. She says, how do I correct a mistake on my ballot if I fill out the wrong bubble?
Great question. So we have, I thought I had a visual on that. Maybe I don't. So basically, Emma, all you have to do is just cross out the bubble that you made the mistake on, and then fill in the bubble of the candidate or choice on a measure or proposition that you want. So that X signifies to us that you did not want to vote for that candidate. And we actually review this process. It's called adjudication. And that's when we review the ballots for voter intent issues. That's our standard practice, but even if you write no and yes by it, we'll take that as well. Any sort of notes will, as long as we can understand what you were wanting to do, we're able to count your ballot the way you want.
So here's an interesting one from Christian. My son no longer lives with us. He moved 8 years ago to another state, Utah, but yet we continue to receive a ballot for him each election. How can we stop this?
So what we recommend that you do is you place on the ballot return envelope. Man, I thought I had one of those too. Okay, on the ballot return envelope, it actually has under the return address says return to sender. If you can write under that, please return to sender, does not live here, and just put it in your mailbox. The mailman's going to return that, bring it back to us, and then we will update our records here. I know a lot of times, unfortunately, it seems like, especially when people move out of state or from another state, it seems like we don't get those notifications from the other jurisdictions. It's great within the state, but once you get to state, it makes it a little bit more challenging. So just write return to sender on that, does not live here, put it back in your mailbox, and we can get that updated. We also have on our website a cancellation form. So if someone wants to say that either someone's passed away, to report someone's passed away, or has moved, they can fill out that form as well. And they just have to, again, declare under penalty of perjury that they're not canceling anyone's a record without anyone's permission. So.
Here's a lighthearted one, but one that I actually care about because I like having that I voted sticker on election day, and I know a lot of people do. So with COVID, will we still get the I voted stickers this year if we vote in person?
Yes. So you will still have the I voted stickers, and we do have gloves there that, if you wanted to accept the I voted sticker with a glove, you can do that. They'll kind of be left at their own pile. But yes, those stickers will be there.
And if I go to a vote center, will you have those stickers there as well?
Yes, absolutely. Plenty of stickers. We know that's important. and we put them in our vote by mail packets, but yeah, at our vote centers, well, even at our drop boxes, our interior drop boxes, they have I voted stickers as well. Even though people, I guess, walk off like with whole rolls of them, but we do have the stickers there as well.
Great. We've got a question from Kelly, and she says, what are the rules about campaigning or campaign materials around poll sites?
Great question. So we refer to this as electioneering, and electioneering is prohibited within 100 feet of the voting area, which means there can't be any campaigns, candidate names, apparel, masks with candidate names within 100 feet of the voting area. If there is, staff will ask, our vote center staff will ask them to remove it, cover it up while they're inside the voting area. If they refuse, then we kind of go into more of our de-escalation tips, but it is prohibited. And again, once it kind of borders on intimidation or influence or coercion, then that's when we do have to take a firm hand and step in. But there's supposed to be no campaigning. It's supposed to be a nice, safe, neutral zone. And if it's not, or you see that, please contact our office immediately. And usually by the time we reach out to some local authorities, it's taken care of.
Great. So there's a question from Cherie. And I don't think this applies to Sacramento County, but what is happening to the ballots that were left in the illegal drop boxes?
You know, I don't know. That's a good question. I hope, you know, the hope is that they still make their way back to the county election officials. You know, I think the goal there was to make sure that certain demographics or political parties were represented. So my thought would be they would want to make sure that those get back to the county election office, even if they weren't in an authorized or official drop box. So I can't say for sure. That's kind of the scary part of this. But I think for the most part, their goals as well is to get those ballots back to us.
So there's a question from Melody, and I'm not sure you can actually answer this, having lived through some of these elections, but how soon do you think Sacramento County ballots will be finished counting? And maybe if you could also add in there, as on election night, as the results are being reported, they're reported in different chunks of, you know, whether they're mail ballots and as precincts report. Maybe you could go through some of that, like what's the sequence?
Yeah, absolutely. So starting at 8 p.m. election night, those are all the vote by mail ballots that we've received so far, and the vote center early voting days that we received through that weekend before the election. Those are those 8 p.m. initial results. From 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. is when we have more of the vote by mail ballots added, about probably like that Monday before election day, and then also any early returns from vote centers. About our 12 o'clock update is really what you're going to see from those in-person vote center locations on election day. And then we have a final report at 2 a.m. that morning. And then it does go to periodic updates twice a week until we certify. And so with this election, you know, to make sure we have social distancing, you know, we think we have our systems worked out to be able to continuously do this and have some additional night shifts so we can make sure folks are doing it safely. And of course, we always have buddy systems with the ballots, so no one is ever left alone with the ballots or doing any processing that is not under camera. So we think, you know, it really depends. I hate to say this because, you know, if there's like a COVID outbreak in our office, that's going to have some pretty big consequences. My staff has been amazing with being safe. You know, I think by, 2 weeks after the election, we're going to have a bulk of what was voted from election day in, and our certification deadline is December 1st. So we have to make sure we're finished by then, and that includes all of our auditing and reconciling. But yeah, as Congressman Bera's experienced before, you know, sometimes it is those, week or two after the election where the candidates are watching very closely to see how things are looking.
Another question from Melody. What percentage of ballots are mailed in Sacramento County? What percent are dropped off or in person?
So, for this election, we're definitely seeing so far with the drop boxes being used about 3-to-1 ratio, as far as 3 with the drop box and 1 through mail. In the past, it was a little bit more even, where it was about half of our ballots were dropped off and then half were mailed. So this election, we're definitely seeing more being dropped off.
So there's a question from Susie, and she says, I just checked my registration with ballot tracks. I dropped off my ballot on Monday at your main office. Ballot tracks continues to tell me invalid credentials. Can you clarify?
Yeah, Susie, would you mind messaging me privately, and I can look up your information and verify and get back to you?
Great. And Susie, if that doesn't happen, if you want to contact our office, we can certainly forward that information over to the registrar.
Great.
I know you've been generous with our time, and we were trying to end around 6:45. Here's a question that probably happens more often than we would think. It's an anonymous question, but it says, a friend erroneously dropped a bill payment in a Dropbox. What's going to happen to that bill?
We get a lot of mail. We get, one time was actually last election, we got a birthday card that was mailed to one of our staff, and it was a pink envelope. So it came to our office, even though it was addressed to her home address, but we got it because they saw pink. So we see all sorts of mail. So we actually either put it back in the mail if it hasn't been postmarked, or we provide a new envelope with postage to get it to where it needs to be.
Here's one that we'll get frequently asked. Do I have to put stamps on? And what if I forget to put a stamp on my mail-in ballot?
Great question. So this year, we actually do not have to put any stamps on any of our returned ballots anymore. So postage is paid in all of California for your ballot. So you do not have to worry about a stamp, especially since I was upset my ATM no longer even has stamps. So now I'm like all frustrated. I can't find stamps. So you do not have to worry about stamps anymore for this anyway.
Great. Well, again, I want to thank you for your generosity of time. For the folks that have stuck with us for about 45 minutes or so, thank you. I hope this was helpful, and we're going to be safe. I've got my face covering, so vote. And in our democracy, your vote is your voice, and regardless of who you vote for, regardless of how you vote, it's important for us in our democracy to make sure one person has one vote, and they're able to cast that. Courtney, do you have any final words or thoughts?
I would just say, just remember that it's our office that is your trusted source for accurate election information, and there is a lot of misinformation out there. And I did see in the chat, concerns about election interference, even from other nations. And so just remember to come to us with any questions, concerns. We also have monthly community advisory meetings. So if there is something, a different process or thoughts you have, let's talk about it and see what we can implement. Because even our envelope design was from community feedback. So we definitely welcome that as well.
Great. Well, everyone, be safe out there. 13 days to the election. Lots of different ways to vote. Certainly go to the county registrar's website if you have any questions. Reach out to your local elected officials. And again, our democracy is really dependent on people using the power of their voice in voting. So be safe, be well, and be kind to one another. Thank you.
Thank you all. Good night.
Good night.